Hi there, I'm Peter Millard, and this is 10 Minute Workshop, where 10 minutes in the workshop is never enough. In the workshop this week, I'm going to start taking you through this big job of mine and start talking about some of the individual components. That's coming up next. In the last video, I made the uprights of the tower sections and the centre span that joins them, and here I'm starting on the fixed shelves. I'm gluing ribs at either end of the shelf using a spacer for consistency, then measuring, cutting and gluing in a centre rib. And with the fixed shelves complete, I'm moving on to the adjustable shelves, again gluing in an end piece with a simple rubbing joint and using an offcut to make sure it stays in line with the end of the shelf. After a reasonable interlude, we can fit the tops to the shelves, spreading the glue along the ribs before pressing the top on firmly, checking that the ends are aligned and clamping at all the corners. And then maybe just another clamp in the middle, just for good measure. With the shelves put to one side, I can start trimming back the capping pieces we applied in the last video, starting with the centre sections, squaring around the ends and trimming them back flush with the track saw. I'm moving one of these sections to the back of the bench and the other out of the way, before bringing in the uprights, again squaring them up at one end and clamping them together, before bringing back the centre section just to support the rail. I'm squaring around the ends of the uprights to mark the cut line, then trimming back to the line, taking care that we're not going too deep before making the final cut. So this is the top sort of fixed shelf. It's slightly longer than these. These are the adjustable shelves. They'll be on rows of holes, not a full row, just one slot either direction up and down. And I'm just capping these in 6mm MRMDF. We've got a 18mm capping piece on the longer shelf. This will go against the wall and have a little infill where it'll all sort of glue in, and maybe put a couple of pins down there. But that's a full width shelf, and then the rest of the shelves are adjustables on holes, and these are just a couple of mil, slightly narrower, so we can get them in and out more easily. The fixed shelf has an 18mm front piece, and I'm putting 6mm capping on all the adjustable shelves, which brings it up to a slightly reduced level, And the fixed shelves will have to be scribed into the wall, so we've got a little bit of wiggle room on there to help us with that. And the capping pieces are just glued in place in the usual way. Plenty of glue, especially around the edges. A little rubbing joint. And just clamp them on with tape that's stretched out. And then we flip it over and do the other side.
With the glue set, all the shelves get a thorough sanding to clean up the edges before being put aside, ready for painting. With the decks cleared, we can start marking up the tower sections, laying the left and right hand uprights on the bench against a stop and separated by an offcut of MDF. I'm using the story stick to mark the face frame cabinet height and squaring this against the faces. Then clamping a rail on this line, checking for square again before cutting the domino mortises, registering off the domino pins so no measuring required. For the dominoes cut, we can use the other side of the clamped rail with appropriate spacers to drill the shelf pin holes. These are at specific heights to match existing shelves in the room, so I'm using my simple jig, working my way up the uprights until all the shelf positions are covered. Up at the top, I'm gluing and screwing on the lugs that the fixed shelves will attach to, again using a simple rubbing glue joint. This time I'm adding a couple of screws for strength and checking that the fixed shelf fits before moving on to the next position.